Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. This word constantly comes up, but what does it even mean? Hey guys, thanks for tuning into my channel. Today, I want to have a very much needed conversation on the whole concept of boundaries. So stay tuned if you want to learn how to establish and maintain your boundaries. Boundaries. We always hear this word. You have to have boundaries. Make sure people are respecting your boundaries. You're only as good as your boundaries. But what are even boundaries? Well, let's get into it. So boundaries are specific to the individual and are developed through our own personal experiences in life. They're formed as a means of protecting our space, our emotional well-being, and our mental health. Boundaries essentially help us maintain healthy relationships, reduce stress, practice good self-care, and empower ourselves by ensuring that our needs and values are being met. Given that people can't read our minds, boundaries are essential for healthy connections and maintaining good mental health. Establishing boundaries helps us communicate our needs clearly, which can help prevent feelings of resentment due to not having our feelings met. Because again, people can't read your minds, so if you don't communicate your boundaries, then how are they gonna know what your boundaries even are? Boundaries allow us to prioritize our desires without sacrificing them for others. When we communicate our boundaries, we communicate our self-worth and expectations for how we deserve to be treated. This in turn helps boost our confidence and sense of value. Boundaries protect us against being taken advantage of. It allows us to maintain control over our lives and our emotions. Establishing boundaries helps us step into authenticity and also self-acceptance by enabling us to express ourselves without fear of judgment. And what this is doing is that it's helping further reinforce your sense of self-worth. So this is basically a radical form of self-acceptance, and in my opinion, this is extremely necessary when you're trying to establish and maintain your boundaries. So this is a form of radical self-acceptance, and it's really necessary because it really helps you comfortably establish and maintain your boundaries. Because again, it reiterates to your subconscious mind that you value yourself, that you are worthy of having your boundaries respected. When you honor your boundaries by reinforcing and maintaining them, you are honoring yourself. And this is why it's so important to develop, establish, and maintain your boundaries. Like, don't expect to see loyalty within your friends and loved ones if you can't even be loyal to yourself. Establishing boundaries is an act of self-love. You're being disloyal to yourself every time that you allow someone to cross your boundaries. If you lack boundaries or don't know how to maintain them, you're probably someone who experiences a lot of betrayal. People you thought that you could trust, people you thought you fostered a connection with, they all inevitably end up betraying you. That's that Judas spirit becoming apparent in your life, energetically following you around from person to person. Whether you're Christian, Catholic, or another religion, I'm sure you've heard the story of Jesus Christ and his 12 disciples. Amongst his 12 disciples was a treacherous soul named Judas. Judas was one of Jesus's followers, his supposed confidant or friend. Only we all know how that story ends. Judas ends up betraying Jesus Christ. Judas went against Jesus even though he was supposed to be his loyal disciple. Judas in this case is metaphorically symbolic of self-betrayal, because you betray yourself every time that you allow someone to cross your boundaries. Because again, a lack of boundaries is a lack of loyalty to yourself. You're being a Judas to yourself every time that you don't express and maintain your boundaries. If you stand up for a friend, then why not yourself? It all comes down to being an ally to yourself. Wanna know why? Because you deserve to be stood up for. Florence Scovel Shinn said, "Life is a mirror and we find only ourselves reflected in our associates." That means that whenever you come across another person, there is something within their energy that is in alignment with yours. So if you struggle with establishing your boundaries, you most likely have people in your life who betray you. This is a reflection of the relationship that you have with yourself. By not expressing and maintaining your boundaries, you are betraying yourself. You are being a Judas to yourself. All that inner chaos eventually begins to manifest into our outer reality. Hence, your self-betrayal attracts betrayal from those around you. When you don't maintain your boundaries, you're being inauthentic to yourself. You're essentially betraying yourself by not speaking up your needs. Everyone that has betrayed you is a reflection of how you've betrayed yourself in a sense by not speaking up. The spirit of Judas will continue to follow you around from person to person, and you will continue to experience betrayal until you start being loyal to yourself by speaking up and establishing your boundaries. Because when you start stepping into that energy, you start being loyal to yourself. When you honor your boundaries, you metaphorically step into that Mary Magdalene energy. Mary Magdalene stood strong in her convictions. She stood by the side of Jesus Christ regardless of how many people came against her. But regardless of this, she was demonized. She didn't get her flowers for being one of Jesus's loyal followers for a really long time. The Catholic Church did not want to recognize her for the role that she played right next to Jesus Christ. They slandered her name and tore down her image, only to now paint her as a model of devotion, faithfulness, and loyalty. Maintaining your boundaries isn't always easy because there will be people who try to test them. And this can honestly be due to a plethora of reasons. Sometimes people lack boundaries themselves, so they'll see it as a challenge to their character when you establish yours. It could also be the case in which people are accustomed to being accommodated by you because they know you have people-pleasing tendencies. Guys, I've unfortunately had so many experiences like this. This essentially led me to enduring straight up bullying from the people that I perceived as friends and family at the time. It took me a lot of introspection and reflection to finally realize that I was totally making myself small and shrinking myself just to be digestible for people who were so incredibly insecure that they went out of their way to make me feel small. So yeah, after introspecting, I decided we're not playing it small anymore. It's crazy, but the concept of boundaries was something that was so foreign to me. And because of this, I allowed myself to deal with a lot of toxicity from friends and family members that I was once connected to. But as I began to establish my boundaries, I began to grow into a better version of myself. And this is because I truly began being loyal to myself. Once I removed the people from my life who didn't respect me and tried to test my boundaries, I stepped out of that Judas energy and into that Mary Magdalene vibrancy. I started being loyal to myself. Don't dim your light, don't bite your tongue, and definitely do not hold back on establishing your boundaries, because every time you do, you are being a Judas to yourself. Step into your Mary Magdalene energy by standing up for yourself and establishing your boundaries. Walk away from people who don't respect your boundaries and don't treat you the way that you deserve to be treated. Boundaries is how you get rid of that Judas energy from your life. The energy of people betraying you, the energy of you betraying yourself. When you step into that Mary Magdalene energy, you honor yourself. You honor your boundaries. You attract people who are loyal to you and respect you because you do the same for yourself. Absolutely do not allow someone to convince you that love and lack of boundaries are synonymous. I think this is really important to mention because manipulation is always a tactic that some people will use in order to essentially challenge your boundaries and manipulating you by essentially gaining control over your emotions. Remember that when someone truly loves you, they will respect you and your boundaries. Respect is synonymous to boundaries as boundaries are to love. Never forget that and always be willing to walk away from anyone who doesn't respect your boundaries. The right people will always honor you and it will always be as clear as day. If you're someone who struggles with establishing your boundaries, then chances are you have a lot of repressed shame that bleeds into people-pleasing tendencies. This usually happens when you've tried to establish a boundary in the past and you've been met with resistance by family, friends, or loved ones. When this happens repeatedly, when someone tries to challenge your boundaries, test them, or borderline gaslights you, this can subconsciously cause you to dim your light. This can cause it to be difficult for you to speak up and express your boundaries. This is because we develop a subconscious belief that our boundaries aren't worthy of being honored, that our boundaries aren't worthy of being respected because we've been shut down in past experiences in which we've tried to establish these boundaries. But I'm encouraging you to continue using your voice, continue speaking up, continue establishing your boundaries. Don't feed into fear because fear is nothing more than false evidence appearing real. And I say this because it is an absolute lie to believe that your boundaries aren't worthy of being honored. Your boundaries are always worthy of being honored, and anyone who thinks otherwise, quite frankly, does not deserve a seat at your table. Radical self-acceptance is the best way to combat that shame that subconsciously manifests itself as people-pleasing tendencies. When you step into that energy of radical self-acceptance, you subconsciously tell your mind that you value yourself, that you respect yourself, and naturally you will start to receive intuitive nudges on your personal boundaries. Honor yourself by honoring your boundaries. Stand strong in your convictions regardless of how much opposition you have, and always use your voice. God gave us a voice so we can use it, so don't be afraid to speak up. Start being loyal to yourself. Develop, establish, and maintain your boundaries. Thank you guys for tuning into my channel. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. I love you guys so much. Keep growing because it'll keep you glowing. Till next time.